Morning, everybody. Welcome along to our press conference today. My name is David McNeil. I'll be your MC. Well, Japan has thought of as being less vulnerable to disinformation spread online by populist politicians and their trolling supporters, but that may no longer be the case. The arrest last month of Takashi Tachibana, a political activist with a large internet following, on suspicion of defaming a Hyogo Prefectural Assembly member who later committed suicide, has focused attention on the emergence in Japan of a political behavior that uses social media. 入ってますよ。OK ですか？すいません。聞こえますか？ OK ですか？すいません。Sorry, I'll just go back to the start. A Hyogo Prefectural Assembly member who later committed suicide has focused attention on the emergence in Japan of a political behavior that uses social media to spread falsehoods and anonymous threats. The sudden increase in electoral support among young voters for anti-immigration San Seito in this year's upper house election has been seen as part of the same trend. San Seito has been linked to false rumors spread on social media of an alleged foreign takeover of Sendai City's water supply. We were just talking in the ante-room about other cases, such as, for example, Takaichi-san, the future prime minister, making claims which appeared to have come online that foreigners were bullying or kicking deer in Nara. So we have two experts who have come along today to discuss this issue. Iwao Osaka is a professor of Komazawa University Faculty of Law, and Yasuomi Sawa is a journalist and professor at Waseda University. They're both experts in social media and disinformation. Osaka-sensei is going to go first, and then we'll have Sawa-sensei. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu. By the way, just if you haven't switched off your keitais, please would you do so you don't disturb the press conference. Just check if it's on. Thank you.
So, shall I? Okay. Good afternoon, not good morning. Hi, my name is Osaka, and thank you for introduction. As you can see, I am quite nervous because I know this place is, this place or you ruined so many politicians. so maybe I won't do that kind of thing again, but it's okay. So let us start. I handed to you some resume or papers, but I don't read them all. Please check it if you are interested. So, hello everyone. It is a great honor as a researcher of political communication to speak in this historically important club, especially in the final months of 2025. Today, I would like to talk about relationship between social media and politics, and what Japan can learn from its own history of mass democracy. I promise I will be careful with my words than Kakue Tanaka once was when addressing this respected association. So this year, 2025, is memorable not only because of international turbulence, from rise of Trump to Prime Minister Takaichi's recent gaffe, but also because something crucial happened exactly 100 years ago. In 1925, Japan entered the age of mass democracy with introductions of universal male suffrage. And at the same moment, radio broadcasting began here. In Marshall McLuhan's term, this is the birth of mass democracy in the electric media age. Universal suffrage was revolutionary for Japanese standard at that time. All men, regardless of taxable status, gained the right to vote. But in the same legislative reform, door-to-door canvassing was banned. Established parties then feared rise of new parties that would gain support through direct outreach. This ban has remained until now. As a result, Japan's elections have become structurally distorted at the very moment when the democratic debate should flourish. Politicians and citizens are legally prohibited from speaking to each other and at the most natural point of contact, the doorstep. Debate has instead been confined to the mass media. So today I will focus on how social media are transforming Japan's political landscape, more for worse than for better. Recently, we have seen troubling example of exploitative political communications by using social media. As our chairman says that Mr. Tachibana's allegedly defamatory conduct, the rhetoric of Sanseito Party, and Mr. Ishimaru's populist tactics in Tokyo governor election. Mr. Fujita of Nihon Ishin no Kai, Japan's Innovation Party, was even accused of dog whistling after posting a journalist business card online, exposing that journalist to harassment. But in truth, dog whistling is not new in Japan's politics. As you can see in my hand resume, there's a chart on my appendix. In 2011, Toru Hashimoto, the founder of the Japan Innovation Party, posted the names of magazine reporters on X, then Twitter. In 2012, the next year, the Shinzo Abe exposed broadcasters' phone number. So that means that politicians always exploit new media when it becomes available. For a long time, but however, they could not exploit internet for electioneering purposes. Even after Japan connected to the internet in 1989, online campaign was banned from 1996 until 2013. Once that ban was lifted, online electioneering is finally entering the mainstream. At the same time, society called, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce well, but society, S-O-I-C-I-E-T-A-R, but I'm sorry, but behavior shifted. The iPhone arrived here in 2008, but because of Japan's aging population, it took nearly a decade for elderly voters, the most influential electoral cluster, to consume news through smartphones. In the 2020s, as you can see the chart in appendix, internet usage time surpassed TV viewing time. Even people in their 40s and 50s now rely less on television. The internet has become a major source of breaking news, and its trust rating have risen sharply. So Japan, long behind the global trend, is now catching up. However, this transition has brought new dangers. Japan lacks a culture of interaction between politicians and individual voters because, as I said, door-to-door canvassing is forbidden. citizens and politicians cannot engage in direct political discussion, even or especially during the election time. Newspapers and TV have sought to compensate it for this weakness, operating within the modest post-war consensus. And as you might know, the television neutrality rules also helped prevent polarization. But younger generation increasingly ignore TV. Online debates, often extreme and emotional, are beginning to set the public agenda. Even mainstream journalists now monitor the internet first, and as a result, extreme online narratives flow into mass media. Immigration policy becoming a major issue in this year's upper house election is a clear example, evidence. In this environment, as we have seen in the US and Europe, even if most citizens tend to hold moderate views, social media-driven political messaging can easily drift towards extremism. The experience of pre-war populism, aided by mass media, and terrible outcome which resulted, offers us a lesson from the history in this regard. Internet dominance is now irreversible. Fact-checking and media literacy are useful, but are you sure that we can handle or overcome the structural power of algorithm with them? So what then should we do? I believe we must rebuild real face-to-face communication between politicians and their voters at the most basic individual levels. We should abolish rigid campaign period rules and legalize door-to-door canvassing so that citizens and candidates can meet, speak, and debate in person. Only by restoring this real-world foundation can we prevent social media-driven politics from destabilizing democracy. And at the same time, as our election becomes more real, more rooted than that is in genuine human-to-human communication, we need to get rid of unnecessary regulations that holds us back. Right now in Japan, the numbers of public posters and mailed pamphlets permitted are tightly controlled. And even the places where posters can be displayed are micromanaged. Ironically, these heavy-handed rules have been easily manipulated by certain candidates who have hijacked official election votes to propagate defamatory statements. I showed the posters of the Hyogo Prefecture's election on my resume, so please check it. So, as I said, I've been in Europe for a couple of years, in Ireland, and went to many countries to see the election campaign there. And I found very interesting that contrast to Japan's election regime with Turkey, for example, a country often labeled as authoritarian. There, in Turkey, candidates can put up posters freely. They may talk directly with voters in small roadside election huts, which is strictly forbidden in here. In some respect, their street levels level election campaigns are far freer than ours in Japan. However, ironic that may seem. What we need is simple. We need to revive and liberalize real face-to-face political communication in this country. So let's give a chance. Let's give face-to-face real communication a chance. And let's make election real again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sawa Sensei?
Okay. Thank you very much, McNeil-san, and thank you very much, Osaka Sensei. My name is Yasuomi from Waseda University. I've been for 30 years a journalist working for Japan News Wire Service, and I was also researching the current situation of journalism and the social media and political circumstances here. I was impressed by the presentation by Professor Osaka, by his concept of how restricted Japan's the environment of speech is, especially political speech. So I always feel quite the same problem from the reaction from my students when I speak about the journalism or example or the actual practice of everyday journalism. The very common reaction from them is that did they get permission? Excuse me, the permission. So in their concept, everything should be restricted, and they need particular permission in each conduct of speech or expression or report or journalism as well. That is sometimes their concept. I have to reply that this is journalism because we don't get permission at all. And unfortunately, even in the society of journalism, there is a very strong concept that more restricted, more reserved sharing of the information might be decent journalism because they are less intrusive. By the way, anyway, so I will begin with my slide. This is a kind of my, based on my statistics, my survey. So this is from the last year's Hyogo election. So it is about Hyogo election. There is a very strong contrast between the supporters of Saito, who were supported by populist supporters, and Inamura, she was a liberal opposite candidate. So you can easily find the Saito was supported by those who don't think you can trust most of the news most of the time. And it has a very clear trend. And statistically, I analyzed this. So there was a 5 degree of trust to the news media. The one strongly disagree to the belief you can trust most of the news most of the time, and number 5 strongly agree. So they approve the trustworthiness of the news media. So if you shift from 5 to 4 or 4 to 3, that means you have one notch higher trust of the news media. So the likeliness of your voting to Saito lowers by 34%. So very clear trend. So this is a very first time, at least in which it was spotlighted that there was a candidate was clearly supported by the voices of online and which distrust conventional news media. So that is not necessarily just a shift from conventional media to digital media, because the information environment of digital media is very contaminated, I'm afraid. As many media analysts has been talking about, for example, this is the interview by TBS, the Hodo Tokushu, the special report, the crew, to a video creator who regularly create video footage for YouTube channels upon the request of clients who do a business to publish video footage on the YouTube channels. And he regularly, trim the whole footage of the interviews or like the scene of the political electoral campaign or TV shows, and put it into another context of the client's video footage, the video product. So this is a very off-the-cuff confess by this. I would like to say he is a default informant, but this young guy, is a university student, and from my source, it was not explicitly reflected on this news episode, but I have heard that he is from a very privileged university with very high intelligence. And he very honestly confessed that. So I don't think in that way, but anyway, I made it. Because he created this content. It includes, he knows it is not true. But he said some clients of him will get more extreme, more provocative, regardless it is true or not. And he said, he confessed, he shared his analysis with viewers, saying that the more extreme, the more provocative the content become, it is more likely to be accepted as the truth. And the provocative, the extreme video footage are viewed more, and they goes further and further and further, and it is dominant. It dominates the society of YouTube or other video platforms. And when it becomes dominant, it is regarded as the de facto truth. That is a mechanism of the video footage who are getting more and more, which the more and more people, more and more voters are relying on recently. I think this is very explosive interview successfully conducted by the TBS, and it is very informative, I think. But it is not, I think, the phenomenon very recently only, because in Japan especially, so many social media users handle their account with anonymous handles, not using their real identity. Without exposing the identity, they can be very provocative, and it is very easy for them to irresponsibly attack anybody else or disseminate false information. I'm afraid this this figure is 10 years old, conducted by Japan's Ministry of the Somsho, Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications. But unfortunately, I haven't been able to find the newer, updated statistics than that. So I have to use this. I have to share this with you. Japan has a very dominant in the usage and proportion of usage of the anonymous account, even comparing with South Korea. I think it is based partly on the Japan's propensity to relying on the anonymity in the real in-person society. The people are very, and if you are as a journalist, perhaps you can find that in Japan, the getting the vox populi is very difficult on the street. People are very hesitant to disclose their identity, to give your voice to the news media. It is very hard. Perhaps if you are a journalist, you can easily understand what I'm saying now. And I was really shocked when I was working in the United States. It's very easy to get the voice of the people on the street. Now, so what is happening now is, this is the Yomiuri Shimbun poll from yesterday. So younger generation has a very clear trend to support Trump, President Trump. And I don't think it is not necessarily because of the generation or the way of thinking or generational perspective. I suspect it is simply affected by their reliance on the online, reliance on the choice of the media. As you know, the 30s, the 20s and 30s and even 40s are outnumbered in the usage of the online news media. And they are dominated by the very easily disseminated information with less responsibility. And this is a little bit complicated chart, but so in the x-axis, you can see the right side is hawkish idea, and the left side is a dovish idea. And you can see this. Can you see you can see that. The video platforms are apps like YouTube. So those who regularly use video platforms and apps like YouTube has a very strong trend to be leaned to right. And if you use NHK on a newspaper, you're less conservative and rather liberal perspective. So this is what we are now on. So, and I don't know what is coming next, because I have to confess that I have completely no idea what is happening next in the circumstances and environment of the online information on the online news. Because, so what is happening now, Japan is a very dominant country with a very dominant usage of the X amongst many social media platforms. And YouTube is getting more and more dominated by this kind of anonymous and very strong and provocative publications. And I'm afraid this polarization and this trend might be deteriorated in the near future. And I would like to think this about with you together today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much to both speakers for very succinct and informative presentations. As always, we throw the room open to questions. If you'd like to ask a question, just show your hand. I'll ask the first question, if that's okay. You both mentioned the problems with the spread of disinformation on social media platforms. You haven't mentioned anything about regulation. whether you think regulation is an option. For example, Sawa Sensei, you talked about the high degree of anonymity on Japanese social media platforms. One of the proposals I've seen is that you are forced to give your real identity if you have a social media account, or of course we've seen places like Australia that have banned children from having social media accounts. So I just wonder if you can address that issue, or Ida Sensei, of is it possible to regulate social media, and in what way?
So it depends. I think it depends. So recently, we really have observed what happened to Tachibana Takashi-san. That he was arrested and he was indicted. I think it is a case of regulation itself. However, so even Tachibana Takashi is kind of very extreme, one of the very extreme example, and so vast majority of Japanese audience and Japanese general public took it for granted that he was arrested and he was taken into the account, into the justice. However, Japan is kind of exceptional country where there is a criminal defamation, which took Tachibana Takashi into the justice. It is a typical two-edged sword, and basic understand in terms of the freedom of expression, criminal defamation is recommended to be abolished in a democratic country because it is too strong, and it causes a too strong chilling effect. So I would like to underline that the case of Tachibana Takashi is a kind of exceptionally strong example. And actually, I have heard from some activist friends that they've gotten a warning, or somebody was searched by the police under the suspicion of defamation or something like that. And it has begun the causing a strong chilling effect to even the labor activists or civil rights activists. I can't disclose the details here, but I feel this is real. So instead, I'd like to raise the attention as a feasible alternative is the disclosure of the source of the internet online post. It is recently very frequently used practice by the lawyers who represent the victims of the abuse online. Even though I think there should be the place for the whistleblowers to be anonymous, even on online, but I think it is kind of the feasible idea to use the disclosure of the source of the online comment as a method to tackle the problem.
Thank you. Would you like to speak?
Yes. So you're talking about the kind of interference or the kind of prohibitions of use of online something?
Well, I'm talking about any kind of state regulation. So, for example, there are proposals that platforms that spread disinformation should be legally responsible for the disinformation.
Yes.
For example, monitoring could be handed to a third party, and then if that platform hasn't spread fake news or disinformation, they can be fined for spreading disinformation.
Yeah.
That's one example, but only one of many.
Okay. So as Sawa Sensei says that the freedom of expression is quite crucial, and if states, kind of interfere with that sort of freedom of expression on the election time especially, it is not good for our democracy. But, so that's why the Tachibana was arrested because of the defamatory, cause. So it must be happy for us to, just simply ban that kind of, expression. But and also, I'm wondering that state itself cannot control the platforms. You see, so the big techs and including TikTok are the kind of regulator, kind of superpower. So the most afraid thing that the YouTuber politicians are most afraid of banned by platformers because they can earn money, they can send messages, but Japanese government, I think, has very limited power to the platformers.
Because
So-
they're mostly American owned.
And yes, and we don't have a kind of EU, unity
Right.
or market. So that is another problem, I think.
Okay, we have a lot of questions online, so I'm going to go. Did you have a question, Rocky? No? Well, maybe we'll take a question first. Is that okay? Yeah, dozo. And then I'll read a question online, yeah. Just tell us who you are when you get to the mic, please. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Rocky Swift with Reuters. In the internet age, some number of political personalities from the United States, mostly from the right wing, have kind of gotten some popularity in Japan. And I wondered if you could address, number one, why do you think maybe these right-wing figures have gotten a foothold in Japan? And really more importantly, what is the pipeline for that? Like how do people in Japan find them in the first place and then translate their materials and then propagate them within Japan? Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much for your question. So I'm not a very fan of such kind of pipeline. So I'm not very fan of reading their posts on the social media. However, this is somehow my speculation. However, I have actually observed like the comment or perspective that President Trump was carried by the Japan, like internet commentators or influencers who are very popular and they're from right wing or populistically right wing, and the comments or statement of President Trump is often introduced by these Japanese online activists or online populists, online influencers, and they are easily disseminated, they easily shared with Japanese viewers and audiences. I think that might be the basis of the popularity of the right-wing activists or political players in the United States or even in Europe or anywhere else. And this is very inflammable because I think it is global, but many Japanese audiences and internet users who are supporting this kind of comment or this kind of perspectives had been fed up with the very liberal schoolboy type, the very moralistic way of thinking, and they feel like they are being liberalized by they get out of their box by the way of thinking or perspectives of these kind of right or alt-right activists. So they are very happy to jump on the perspectives introduced by the right-wing the conservative Japanese conservative activists. So that's why they catch the popularity in Japan not quite, but recently. I think that is a mechanism.
Can I? Well, maybe deep state, can handle it. It's a joke. But I think if they want to increase influence, or if they want to make money, they are doing the same thing. So, and I also have kind of a YouTuber who is American, but try to, speak up with Japanese political circumstances. That must create some kind of connection. But usually it's a kind of business. So they are doing the same thing. And because they are doing the same thing, they are getting to know each other from that, perspective, maybe.
I think this is can I add? Can I follow up?
Yeah,
So I think it is typical that the right before. Sorry, I can't remember the name of the right-wing activist who were assassinated quite recently.
Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, Charlie Kirk. Was meeting with the top of the Sanseito here.
Yeah.
So I think this is even perhaps from the perspective of the Osaka Sensei on the side of business, I don't know it, but or they have they share their perspectives, even like Trans-Pacific counterpart.
Yeah. There's a common element of nativism, I think, among these parties. The sort of protect our own culture kind of thing. That's one of the links between Sanseito and the American right. This is a question from online. This is from Eric Johnson of the Japan Times. This is for both professors. An April 2025 report on international freedom of expression by the Pew Center found that 51% of Japanese agreed it was very important to report the news without government censorship. That's lower than many European, North American, and even Latin American countries. Given that, do you think Japanese people would be more likely to agree new internet social media laws by the Takaichi government that strengthen censorship, monitoring of political speech, and legal penalties for fake news? So are Japanese people more receptive to the idea of censorship?
Yes, my answer is yes. Short answer is yes. Japanese people are very eligible, very acceptable for this kind of regulation. And in general, Japanese, I'm talking from my experience as a journalist for 30 years, but Japanese general public or even the newsrooms are relatively relying on authority. They like authority, the authority's regulation. They think it is trustworthy. I'm afraid it is gullible. However, so that is the general public. So I don't think they are particularly concerned about the recent trend of the spread of the disinformation, the misinformation, the other types of false information. But when they feel frustrated in the information environment, they are very easy to take an action by asking or requesting the regulation by the authority without considering deeply the outcome or side effect of it. I am really concerned about this trend, but I would like to say this is the reality.
Osaka Sensei, would you like to?
Yes. For internet users, the mass media journalism is kind of Well, I could say enemy, or it's a kind of obstacle, because in the field of internet, the internet users, YouTubers, are equal. They thought they are equal to the mass media journalists. But mass media, seen from their perspective, the mass media kind of dominate the information sphere. So there has been always anti-mass media feeling from that internet users. So if you take advantage of that feeling, she can very easily control the atmospheres.
Can I follow up from the perspective of journalism? So the trend of the many political programs on the YouTube is a live stream of interviews of a politician or those in power or influencers. So this kind of live interview has a specific character that the interviewee, the guests, are not intervened by the moderator, or it is not edited when it was on the broadcast. So they are free to spread their even lies or their just perspective without questioned by the moderators. But that is why this kind of platform of programs are popular by Japanese or even other in the other world viewers, because they feel annoyed by the intervention of the moderators or interviewers, even though that has a very strong, important role to revise or keep them honest or prevent them to spread lies.
So can I just one word? But the history repeats, because when the TV started broadcasting the politics, in 1990s in Japan, many journalists in papers are kind of looked down to the TV journalists, and such as the legendary Tahara Soichiro, the interviewers, are some kind of outcasted, So this is another moment of changing the environments of media.
Yeah.
So we have to, get used to. Yeah.
Dozo. This gentleman and then the two gentlemen.
Hi, I'm Doug Montgomery with Global Connects Media, also professor at the Temple, Japan, and I teach a course, Communication in Public Life, so quite similar to this topic. Anyway, it was probably 2 months ago, David was there, we had a conversation about similar topic. And anyway, we ended up on the topic of media literacy. And as a hopeful note to you, one of my Japanese students was talking about how we can combat fake news, and she mentioned we need to be taught media literacy. Japanese lady said it. And I asked her, what age should this be taught? And her answer, which shocked me, was like 12. So I'm going to ask you guys, you're both professors, what do you think about teaching people media literacy as an antidote to the problem of fake news?
Well, it's a very hard question, but well, for young people, because they are born with, social media, smartphones, and they are. I heard news yesterday through the smartphone that influencers are more important for them, even with political, things, that the reports. So I think they will be okay, or they will get used to the internet circumstances, because but we, as we see in the previous upper house elections, they are both for Kokumin Minshito and Sanseito. And I asked them that, why do you choose that parties? They answered, because I like their policies. The one who voted for Kokumin Minshito says that I'm poor and I want to lift the ban of the kind of, the wall of the, the taxation. So I voted for them. And the other person who voted for Sanseito, he says, I'm very curious about, foreigners. So they selected by policies. But as a teacher of politics, I had always been teaching that you should make choice with policies. So they are doing, the right way.
What about making choice of media source? That's really my point.
Yeah. But in these days, for them, is a what? The short, what do you say? That short summary or message, yeah. Or the front line.
The headline.
Headlines are news.
Yeah.
Because they saw they consume the news through the line news, but they just following the outline. That's all.
So
yeah,
we should be teaching.
Hold on. We can't get into a dialogue. We can't get into a dialogue on it.
So, okay, can I follow up?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very good question, I think. And what we need is the education or literacy for information at all. Before answering your question, the particular question of the age, I'd like to show my context, because we need the literacy education in the context of not just information, yeah, or journalism. We need the context of civil engagement, because that's why we need the literacy for information. We need to get into the authentic information. Looking back to the situation in Japan with this context, I'm really frustrated, because yes, we need to find out which is false and which is true. However, I don't think it is enough, because if it is okay to technically rule to find out. So you should look out for the first-hand information, or you should look at the source, and you should look at who said this, and you should look at what platform it is provided with. However, so it makes it complicated for the younger generation, and they might be just alienated from the information context, information, chaos. And what we need in Japan is why we need information. In the context of citizenship, in the context of citizen engagement, as a citizen, we need information to engage in democracy. So in that context, not as it had been said, the journalism or information distribution with making a trouble of everybody, like doing a meiwaku. In regular context of the literacy in journalism in Japan, the making a trouble to others, making a meiwaku in Japanese context is a very bad thing, and how to avoid this is a very good journalism. However, in the context of what I show you now is the context of engagement. So beyond meiwaku or beyond the trouble, what we need is a rich context, context-rich and comprehensive information with verification. I mean.
So can I just one short one. So what we need is not just media, literacy, but politics literacy. So that's why I wanted to, remove the ban of canvassing, to have conversation between candidates and political affairs people with ordinary, voters. So that is the most influential and most basic media is just talking to each other, maybe. So that is why I am saying that Mela make election real again.
Yes. Can they resume?
Well, just let me, because we have a lot of questions lined up, if that's okay. I mean, the issue really is, well, one of the big issues, as you said, is verification, right? Yes. the simple distinguishing between what's true and what's not, that's a very kind of key question and not an easily solved one. I'm going to read out a question from Andrew Horvat. Nice. He's an ex-president of the club. He's, I think, tuning in from Canada. How have the legacy media reacted to the sudden shift from reliance on newspapers and television for news to trusting unmediated information on social media? How are the online editions of Japanese newspapers doing in the US? The New York Times and other legacy media have succeeded in becoming successful online publications. So it's a question about Japan.
Yeah, it is a very difficult question, but on the business side, it is true that the Financial Times or New York Times are very much successfully enlarged their subscription online. However, in Japan, as you know, the Japanese newspaper, regular newspaper, especially the national newspaper, had been enjoying the massive circulation, more than 7-digit. However, I'd like to underline that it is pushed up by the very strong sales force knocking on the door neighborhood, and sometimes it was criticized as a very pushy method to pump up the circulation. So once it is removed from the real business world, and recently it is almost impossible to do that, keep on doing that. So along with the digital distraction, the massive circulation is now decreasing rapidly. However, without this kind of sales force, the digital subscription in Japan does not seem to be as successful as the print circulation. So it is, for example, the Asahi Shimbun, one of the top runner of digital transformation, has been keeping the level of 300,000 subscription for paying for more than 5 years, I think. Even despite their very strong, very very serious effort. So I am not very optimistic in the future of the increase of the digital subscription of the legacy media in Japan.
Just one word. I think that, well, we'll have 1 or 2 national newspapers in the future.
Really?
And Nikkei will be survived. Yeah. But, yeah, 5 newspapers, national newspapers, are too dense.
Which ones will go, do you think? Sankei?
well, I think Yomiuri will survive.
Yomiuri.
Yomiuri will survive.
What about the Asahi?
Asahi is kind of rapidly declining now, you see. So I'm not sure. But TV is getting better. I mean, they sell their softwares to the upload.
Yes.
So maybe that. But problem is that the professional journalism are mainly in the newspapers in Japan. But so what will happen is, I don't know. But as you know, that the professional journalism in Japan is also blamed with that kind of Kisha Club system, just speakers of the bureaucracy.
The publication of Happyo Hodo, right?
Yes,
Official news.
yes. So they don't need so much people. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah.
Are you guys okay to stay for a couple of more minutes? Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah, because we have a couple of questions. I'm sorry I've been neglecting the two men at the front here.
Thank you very much. My name is Masanori Matsui. I was a reporter at the Nikkei Shimbun. Thank you very much for the Osaka-san. So I think the freedom of speech is very important, very, very important. Having said so, I want to ask you, both of you, about regulations. So there is an idea, soft regulation, not hard, not by state. So for example, to make some upper limit of money which is paid by a GAFA or by a company during a period of a campaign. I think there are many idea of same type of so please I will ask you just possible or any kind of the regulation is impossible or something like that.
So is soft regulation possible, or any regulations possible?
Can I ask you about your focus on the regulation? Is it a regulation of the, like journalism, or regulation for the online platform?
Online platform, and also it's a voluntary based in business way.
So I think one type of regulation possible here in Japan is kind of learning from the European Union's practice, because doing such kind of practice freely by big player of platform is almost impossible to control. B, it is, even though they do under self-control, self-regulation, it is in the black box, and it is not verified by the people's let's say, context or people's criticism. But we can't get into the process of the self-regulation with the commercial body. So I think there might be some kind of intervention of the government in the very near future in Japan. However, getting into the context itself, or get into the content itself by the government is, I think, too dangerous to introduce. So doing the by way of the business, or amount of money, or flow of cash, or flow of fund, might be an idea. And as McNeil-san said, the beginning with the regulation on the usage, like in the minors exposure, might be regulated. But more importantly, we need, as a very as a case, as a style of regulation, we need to share the understanding or concept that social media might be harmful to our democracy or our knowledge consumption. We need a cigarette type advertisement on the yes. So because recently I frequently use the analogy that the X is the modern cigarette. You can just handle this X in your very small time. However, you might get into the chain smoking.
Right. So you open up X and it says this platform is bad for your health.
Yeah.
It could cause you cancer. Dozo, this gentleman.
Takuya Nishimura, freelance journalist. It seems to me that the voters' turnout in recent elections are getting higher than ever with the prevalence of SNS recently. Do you think it's a good thing for democracy in Japan? And do you find any alternative to SNS to raise the voters' turnout in elections? Thank you.
Well, every increasing of voters' turnout is good, I think, for democracy. But the democracy itself is kind of critical, you know. It can lead to the both ends. So that, but it is not my job to restrict as a, not researchers, studies of politics. I couldn't say that stay in your house, just like Mori, Yoshinori once said, but but democracy is kind of very dangerous in a way, because demos is not always clever. So we have to raise more clever voters. So that's the point, I think.
Can I follow up? So I think I would like to focus on more in the mobilized younger generation by the social media, as is pointed out, or even an elderly generation might be mobilized by the exposure to the social media more, because more and more social media is no longer things just for the younger generation. It is heavy. There are so many heavy users in the elderly generation. However, so it is good. I don't say it is a bad thing to turnout is getting up, even though the election result is not my favor. However, it also shed the light to the conventional media's practice has not been effective to stir up the interest in the politics in unmobilized, so far unmobilized population, especially younger generation. They are very much stimulated by even though the very bad quality YouTube shows or the just very short comment from the X, but it worked. Now it is time for conventional media or civil society to how to get into the younger generation or even other generation to engage each other. The one, and I don't think social media might be partly poisonous if we too heavily rely on it the final answer, final and real true, the solution might be in the real world, as Professor Osaka said. So in Japan, as you know, it is incredible, but the Japanese government banned the door-to-door canvassing. It is a very good golden opportunity to have a natural conversation with your neighbors about the politics, and you can't avoid this opportunity during the political campaign, which in Japan is extremely short. So I think, eventually we need to expand the opportunity for voters or citizens to exposed to the real political conversation.
Oh, just one thing. So as I mentioned that the pre-war situation of Japan, we were a democratic society, Japan, because we have main universal suffrage. But in that democratic regime, went into the war.
Yeah.
So that is a lesson we have to learn from that first. And the same situation, well, we likely to compare this situation, turbulence of the 2025, just like the pre-war, era. So we have to learn from that period what we should do. But Japan has a kind of advantage that we are using regulations of canvassing lifted to kind of modest talk between voters and politicians. And I believe that people in here is quite moderate. So they don't have to, fooled by kind of YouTubers or internet demagogues through the conversation between each other, I think.
Thank you. This is the last question, okay? This is an online question, and I promised the person I would ask it. So it's from Keiko Nagamine. She's a PhD candidate at the University of Leicester in the UK. And she's wondering how and why has citizens' online political engagement in Japan transformed so dramatically since 2020? So she's picking 2020 as the point when this transformation you're talking about, this transformation of online political discourse has happened. Does anybody want to address that question? Mm-hmm. How and why since 2020?
Well, it depends on the perspective of you have. I mean, in 2020, there were right-wing, populists using the social media, just like Sakurai or blah, blah, blah. And yes, at that point, the revisions of public prosecutors are done by kind of support of the social media thing. But we also have another size of people using another way of social media. So seeing this social media thing is very complicated because it reflects the researchers' perspectives. So maybe you will find the other sides of using social media in that era, in that year too.
I agree that there was a kind of very outstanding, very exceptionally powerful online movement, online demonstration pointed out here, like a Twitter demonstration, opposing to the revision of the law of the prosecution, in which the Prime Minister Abe attempted to keep his favorite senior prosecutors in position for perhaps his sake. So it was very tremendous phenomenon in that time. But I'd like to point out that the general trend in the bigger picture, the online trend for politics are generally very cynical for democracy, and I don't think it is necessarily favorable for the democracy or civil liberty, and it is just deteriorating recently.
Just one more. But remember that, as I said, that Japanese people are modest, but also very conservative.
Yes.
So, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, on that slightly bleak note, we will end. Thank you very much to Osaka Sensei from Komazawa Dangaku and from Sawa Sensei from Waseda Dai for coming today and giving us their views on this very important topic. I feel like we could talk a lot more about this, but we don't have time, unfortunately. Do show your appreciation for the two speakers if you would. Thank you so much.